What is up, all you real estate loving individuals? This is episode number 5 of the Real Estate Take podcast, and I'm your host, Wendell Butler. This is your go-to podcast for tons of information regarding the current real estate market, where we get various real estate professionals' current take on different areas of real estate. For today's guest, we have Ryan Emrich. Is it Emrich or Emrich?
You got it, Emrich.
Emrich. So he's trying to be rich. Emrich.
That's
Ryan Ryan Emrich is a real estate investor and finance professional from the greater Boston, Massachusetts area. Ryan started his real estate investing journey in 2019 by house hacking a triplex in Worcester, Massachusetts, utilizing the FHA 3.5% down loan program. Last year, Ryan also utilized the FHA 203K loan product on a multifamily rehab just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. Ryan additionally owns 17 units between himself and his investing partners at Blue Canyon Equity Partners. Ryan and his partners are looking to double the number of units they own in 2023 and is looking to utilize syndications to scale their portfolio rapidly. So Ryan, how you doing, dude?
I'm doing well, Wendell. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I am thrilled to be here. I've heard some great things about you and about this show, so it's a true honor.
I'm glad I only heard the good things, because there's sometimes some bad things. You know?
Yeah, you're doing a good job of suppressing the bad things online. So
that's good. That's good. Yeah, it's important to keep stuff off online. You might, get canceled or something. Who knows?
Yes.
But so Ryan, you were from Boston, but right now you're in Denver, Colorado, right?
That's true. Yes, I've been splitting my time. I am from Boston, and I still go to Boston quite frequently. But I've been splitting my time right now between Denver, Colorado, and Boston. So
it's kind of a man.
Tale of two cities. Yes, sir. I've been enjoying the back and forth. Got first time in my life I've gotten airline status, so I'm a United Silver status. So I'm working up there. It's kind of, I think, as I build the real estate portfolio, maybe I'll see that continue to climb up. Maybe I'll be gold status, platinum status, whatever's up there.
Diamond status.
Diamond. I don't know which ones. Yeah, I'll take them all though.
You been taking first class?
I only, funny thing is, first time I've ever sat in first class was this year, 2023, January 1st. I was flying back from San Francisco out to Denver, and I got upgraded. I'm sure because nobody wanted to fly, New Year's Day. Everybody has hangovers and shit. I got upgraded to first class, which was awesome, but I didn't realize I was going to get a free meal for like a measly 2.5-hour flight. So I go on there with all my snacks, chicken quesadilla that I got from the airport, and like, oh, you get a free meal, it was great. They gave you nice glassware, actual metal silverware. So just trying to keep that coming, keep that good first class vibes going.
Yeah. Well, they also give you unlimited drinks. I don't know if you abuse that at all.
I was not planning. No.
I got upgraded to first class once because I was like, I'm a veteran. So like, I was like, there was a seat open in first class and they want to fill it. Like they always want to fill first class. So they just saw that we were veterans. So they just put us up there. And I didn't even know that you get unlimited drinks. So like,
that's great. I didn't know. I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I didn't know. But then my partner was just my
getting wasted
past partner was just getting wasted next to me, and I was taking a nap, and I woke up and she's like, "This is my third one." I'm like, "What?" Like, you paying for it? And she's like, "No, it was you." Then we started just chugging Bloody Marys. I think they cut her off eventually, but they didn't cut me out.
I do think they do like a 2 or 3 drink limit on the flights because they don't want rowdy passengers. But
get a little rowdy, but
not Spirit Airlines. You gotta maintain some level of calm and tranquility on the flight.
That is true. But all right, let's get back into some real estate stuff. I know flying. Flying involves real estate. You got to fly to your property sometimes and do some exploring. But let's get into your story a little bit. First, I just want to start off to talk about what you currently do now, like in your professional life, and what got you into real estate, and kind of what's your backstory, and just give us a broad idea of where we're coming from.
Yeah. All right. So let me start with how I kind of got into it, and I won't go too far back into it, but graduating college, one of my majors was accounting, and I kind of went into public accounting. I did go into public accounting, got my CPA license, but I kind of knew I wanted to do something a little bit more entrepreneurial, knew I didn't want to be an accountant the rest of my life, and I didn't want to work for somebody the rest of my life. So I was starting to think about what are the things I can do to kind of either start my own business or at least make some additional income on the side in addition to what I was making in public accounting. And so one of the things I was considering was franchising, food and beverage. I was really interested in the food and beverage industry. I wanted to open a restaurant, but as a franchisee. So kind of doing like a Firehouse Subs or, a Subway or fast casual Mediterranean, something along those lines. So I was looking into that. I was reading it. I was researching it. I was listening to podcasts, started talking to one of my newer friends at the time who I'd met in public accounting about that idea. And he's like, oh, well, I've thought about investing in real estate. So then we kind of mulled over the two options, and we decided that real estate actually seemed like it was easier to get into off the bat, especially with the low down payment programs that are available for individuals who want to buy their first home. And so one of those is the FHA, the Federal Housing Administration. They have a 3.5% or up, you can go down to a 3.5% down payment. You can do any amount for the down payment, but they'll let you go as low as 3.5% to acquire your first 1 unit up to 4 unit building, as long as it's owner occupied. So me and my friend at that time, we decided to kind of partner up and start trying to find our first rental property. I really wasted no time. We had like a conversation, then I immediately started schedule showings. We didn't have a realtor or anything like that. We kind of just started going to showings, reading, getting more fluent and literate in real estate investing metrics and terms and stuff like that. So I think that was toward the end of 2018. And then at the beginning of 2019, we made an offer on a property out in Worcester, Massachusetts by Clark University. And that was our first property. So we decided to do it together. And the way we did this is we kind of knew behind the scenes that we'd be partners. But for the first property, we put it in his name. And for the second property, we put it in my name. So that first year, 2019, we each bought a 3-family in each of our names. They were about the same price. So it kind of worked out well where we could partner up and kind of help each other out with each of our properties. So that was in Worcester. And that was, as I said, in 2019. And then as we know, we got into COVID era. And at first we weren't sure what was going on or what was going to happen with COVID. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty. But then we saw strong demand and not a lot of inventory. So prices around the country rapidly appreciated. I don't know if rapidly is fair, but it seems rapidly. And the same happened in Worcester. So it ended up being a really nice time to get into it. We got to stabilize the properties. We got to learn a lot at the beginning, and then we got some nice appreciation on top of it. And then that kind of just trickled naturally into, and I don't know if you want me to go through my kind of whole career there, but that opened the door for me to do a little bit more. Now that I had the equity there and I had some options to pull some of that equity out, I could roll that into additional properties. And that's what eventually led me to partnering up and getting some additional properties.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to go into there. But
yeah.
But let's start back at just like the initial property. So when you were partnering with this person, so you went and bought out, you said you bought out 2 3-families, so each under your own names, but you kind of helped each other do it at the same time. So you kind of split them.
Correct. Yeah. So we had like an informal partnership agreement, and we could have made that formal. I mean, there's nothing stopping you from just having a contract and saying behind the scenes you're going to be partners, even if the properties themselves don't have both of your names on it. As long as you guys have a contract between you two, acknowledge, or whoever you want to partner with, if it's one person or multiple. I mean, the contract, and as far as I know, consult with your own attorney, but it's contract law, and that's all legitimate behind the scenes. But yeah, so that's what we did. We helped each other out, and that was the intent. We were going to help each other out, and many times we were. That unfortunately ended up kind of evolving into a situation where I felt like I was taking on a lot more of the property management responsibilities because we were self-managing. And so that kind of led to a little bit of conflict and strife later on in the partnership, which then we ended up going our separate ways, which I learned a lot from that. But yeah, that was the intent, and that's what happened when we first started doing this. So
cool. So like, yeah. So you started with 2 3-families. When you first bought these 3-families, were there tenants there, or was it vacant, or like what went through the whole process of buying it? Did you have to? What was going through your mind? Like, what didn't you know, and what did you know, and did you teach yourself a lot of this yourself, or did you have kind of a mentor that you went to help figure it out? Just bring us all like through there, like baby steps.
Sure, yeah. So let me do a deeper dive into that first property, because that was really the one where we were like, oh my goodness, like we just made an offer, it got accepted. And so this was a property that I actually didn't visit it the first time that we went to go look at it. It was my partner that looked at it, and we ran the numbers, and we felt that the numbers were too high because we were trying to look for something that hit the 1% rule, which if you don't know what the 1% rule is, you're aiming to get the monthly market rents of the property be about 1% of the purchase price. So if your monthly rents are $1,000 a month, you'd be looking for a property that's about $100,000. And so for this particular property, I can't remember. I think we thought our market rents were going to be like 1,200 a unit, so about $3,600 a month. That's where we thought we would get them. So we were looking for a purchase price of around $360,000. But I think at the time the seller had it at like 425 or 430,000 or something like that. So at first we kind of walked away from the property, but we revisited a month or so later once we saw it was still sitting in the market. And I said, hey, I think we should actually offer on this. It's a decently sized triple decker. There were tenants in all of the units. One of the units was super low in rent. And we said, why don't we get that one delivered vacant at closing? So that's the one that my partner can move into. And then we were right near Clark University. Like I said, it was walking distance. There's a lot of younger people in the area walking around. So we're like, this is perfect. Even though the tenants that were in that building at the time were not students, we thought that if it came push to shove and we started, I don't want to say evicting tenants, but we started like raising rent or naturally having turnover, we'd probably be able to get students. And so we made that offer. That was definitely nerve-wracking because there's a lot of talk and research that goes into it on the front end. But when you actually start pulling the trigger on stuff, it's kind of like, oh my goodness. At the time I'm in my mid-20s, I'm like, I'm about to buy an investment property with somebody and we're gonna be landlords, and all the tenants were older than us. So that's kind of just like an interesting, maybe even potentially, I would say, weird dynamic to have right off the bat. And so we went through it. We had learned about stop work certificates. So one of the things we had asked for was we wanted to go through each of the units and have the tenants sign documentation saying that they agreed, or listing out what their lease terms were so that we could compare it to what the seller was telling us the lease terms were. And what ended up happening there was the seller just said it was easier for him to do it. So we just gave him the stoppels and he had the tenant sign them, which we felt a little odd about that, but we didn't really question it too much at the time. Everything went fine there. And we ended up closing on the property in April of 2019. So I think 3.5% down at that time for what our purchase price was, which we ended up getting our purchase price down to like 370,000 or so. So 3.5% was like 13 or 14,000. But we quickly ran into a bunch of issues, which I was I don't know about excited, but it was a joyous moment. We were obviously celebrating buying our first property, but we immediately ran into hurdles. So we were originally going to move into the second floor unit. Second floor was planning on vacating within, I think, 45 days of closing. And they were actually like the brother-in-law or something like that of the prior owner. So while we were originally planning to move into that unit, but then as soon as we closed within like 2 days, the third floor unit told us that he couldn't afford to pay the rent he was paying, and he wanted to leave, and he wanted to move out like ASAP. And I'm like used to reading and researching, thinking that they have to give proper notice and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, there was nothing I could really do about it. He wanted to leave sooner. And so then we kind of said, okay, well, we were going to move into the second unit. Well, why don't we move into the third unit? Because that's the one that's going to be available first. So then that gentleman, I say gentleman, but I wouldn't actually describe him as a gentleman. He said, well, he's like, I need help moving all my stuff out of here. Can I get my security deposit back so that I can pay for the mover?
Yeah.
And we felt uncomfortable with that. So we're like, listen, on the day that you're moving, we will give you your security deposit if we come in here and see that everything's cleared out. We got there the day he was moving, everything wasn't cleared out, but he's like, the movers say they need payment on the front end or they're not going to do this. So we reluctantly, but we were hesitant, but we did give him the security deposit. And then we came back the next day. And because we had driven out to Worcester from the Boston area that night, he hadn't moved out yet. So when we came back to Boston, everything wasn't moved out. So he moved some of the stuff out. He was gone. The keys were there. We were trying to get in contact with him. We're like, when are you getting the rest of the stuff out of here? He essentially left a bunch of junk behind. He had the security deposit. There was nothing we could do about it. So that was the first kind of a big lesson we learned right there, was like, we were rightfully doubtful about what the situation there. So we had to hire a junk remover to get that all out of there. We had to pay some money up front, which we weren't really anticipating to do on turning that unit and painting it to get it ready for us to move in, or at least my partner at the time to move in. And then we were also going to rent out the other 2 bedrooms to some students, which is what we ended up doing. Simultaneously, the tenants on the second floor that we thought were going to be moving out within 45 days started saying that the rent amount that we had on their tenant estoppel that we thought they were paying in rent, which there's a tenant estoppel that we had this landlord sign before he sold us the building. They're like, no, that's not true. That's not how much we're paying. On the estoppel, it said that they were paying like $500 or $600 a month, which was already insanely cheap for a 3-bedroom. And they were like, no, we only pay like $200 or $300 a month.
Oh my
So that
God.
ended up being the whole thing. And not only that, they decided not to pay us at all. They weren't even paying anything. So that kickstarted an eviction. We had to hire a landlord tenant dispute attorney, and that took like 5 months to get that tenant out of there. So right off of, and then so that was like within like literally the first month and a half. And then on top of all that, the first floor unit started complaining about an electrical issue, and we started getting electricians to come there, and they were telling us that there was a big electrical issue in the unit that needed to be fixed, and it would cost like 10K. And we're like, oh my God, I'm like, we don't have 10K. Like, we literally were scrounging trying to get this down payment together. And now it's like we have an eviction. We're not getting cash flow the second floor unit. Third floor just moved out, not getting cash flow. We're spending money turning the unit over. And then the first floor, they're paying, and they were paying the most. They were paying 1,200. And we were super happy that they were paying. But now we had the possibility of having to fork up 10K. Fortunately, we shopped it around. We found an electrician that was able to fix the issue for far less, fix it for under $1,000. And that was like the first thing. And then we slowly started realizing that managing real estate and managing a portfolio is really just comes down to problem solving. And so we kind of calmed down after the 10K thing got resolved. And we're like, okay, we'll get past everything else. We had the attorney there. Eventually the eviction got dealt with. Third floor unit got turned over, got painted. It looked so much nicer. They were paying 800. We were able to get like 1,000 or 1,100 just renting out the other 2 bedrooms. So we were feeling really good. And I don't know if you remember at the beginning of this, I was saying that we thought we'd get 1,200 a unit. We ended up being able to extract like 1,400 to 1,500 a unit. Once we got this property stabilized, we got tenants, better tenants in there. We started renting it by the bedroom in some of the units. So that ended up being definitely super scary on the front end.
Yeah.
And then it ended up working out on the back end. So now I will say, so that the FHA program, if you don't mind, I want to kind of jump into that a little bit more, that 3.5% program.
Yeah. Hold on. I just want to ask another, jump into a few more things. So,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people say that they're afraid of jumping into real estate, and a lot of it is kind of the things that you just explained. Like right off the bat,
Yeah.
you got everything. You're like eviction, people not paying, people being like sneaky and like taking the security deposit and not doing what
Yep.
you're saying. Electrical problems immediately. Now, if you put a spin on it, though, it's kind of the best way to get into real estate is to just do it, and then you learn as you're going. I'm sure you guys had like reserves. Do you have like kind of some money, a little money saved up as you went into this, knowing if something did happen, you can kind of deal with it as it goes on? Or did you kind of jump in like without that and you kind of just got
No,
sledged?
unfortunately. So obviously part of the loan underwriting process, they wanted to make sure you had reserves. So we did have,
Yep.
in theory, we had reserves, but those reserves were tied up in accounts like they were in stocks or they were in a 401k accounts. So it's like they were technically there, but we would have had to sell stuff in order to get it. And we were trying to avoid things like that. So I think we each had like a couple $1,000s extra saved up that was like liquid at the time to put toward this. But something like a $10,000 expense, that was really big. And we're like, we still need to like turn these units. We still need to paint units. So it was kind of like, if we spend $10,000 right now, we're going to be drained. And then how are we going to possibly go buy a second property this year? So that stuff was scary. What we did, I wouldn't necessarily recommend. Like, I think the low down payment option is great, but you absolutely need to have, I would say, at least 4 to 6 months of mortgage payments in reserve. So like if your mortgage payment is $2,000 a month, and have 10 to 12,000 or so there in reserves, and that will help out with like big ticket items too. I mean, obviously, if on the front end you're gonna have to replace things, then you want to have that in cash to begin with. But yeah, we didn't have a ton of cash, but we knew we both we have decent families. So I knew like if I really needed money, I could ask my parents for a small loan. Like I knew that was in the cards, and my partner knew that was in the cards for him. We didn't want to have to do that, but like we knew we weren't going to be like foreclosing on the property within 3 months. We knew that wasn't going to be an outcome that was foreseeable. So yeah, I mean, you're totally right. Like jumping into things, kind of boots on the ground, and just dealing with things as they fly at you, definitely one way to learn. But we did do a good amount of research on the front end as well, and we had like underwritten a ton of properties, like probably like literally 100 properties. We were plugging into our Excel calculator, like running the numbers. So we were really confident like what a decent return looked like by the time we found it. And so that's only part of it, making sure that you on paper at least have a deal that looks good. And then the other part of it, which we had no experience with, was actually being a landlord and running the properties. So that's another skill set. And again, I would still advise people to research that. But yeah, to your point, I mean, that's probably not something you're going to really know until you actually get on the ground and start managing.
Well, yeah, people get stuck in what they call it. What's it called?
Analysis paralysis.
Analysis
Or
paralysis, where they just keep on running numbers, and like even if it looks good, they're like, I don't know, like
yeah,
let's just keep
it's
running
scary.
numbers.
No, it's totally scary because you're like,
But yeah, but like to your point, like if you do enough, like you said, you did like 100, you know, a ton of different calculations for different properties, and I did the same thing too before I did my first property. But it gets to a point that like once you start hitting the properties, like calculating them correctly, and you start getting comfortable, like, okay, this one makes sense, and you do it again, this one kind of makes sense, this one kind of makes sense. You can't just keep doing that. You got to eventually just start making offers that make sense on them, and just kind of get in there. Because if you get stuck in the analysis paralysis, you never execute. There's a difference between planning and executing, and a lot of real estate is just executing. Sure, things that go bad, just like you explained. You unfortunately ran into a lot of bad things up in the front end, but also in turn, looking back on it, you're probably like, thankfully that happened because I learned so much, and now you prepare for anything else in the future. You can even go into properties that have those problems because you know how to fix them, rather than being like, I don't want that property even though the numbers look okay because I don't know how to fix that stuff. So it's kind of like there's pros and cons to both, and it just seems like that was I would say it's a great property to start with, because you probably learned a ton, but it was probably really stressful during that whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the moment, it was extremely stressful. In hindsight, and after a year and we stabilized it, it was well worth it, and we were happy with where we got it. And I mean, I will say on top of that like it is hard. The analysis paralysis thing is like a real thing, but accountability is a huge part of being able to take steps forward and make forward progress. Having a partner is one way to have that accountability. And so me and my partner at that time, we were like kind of pushing each other, and we didn't want to just talk the talk. We wanted to be able to walk the walk. So we were like, okay, we're making offers, and when they get accepted, we did the inspection. And then we're like, okay, are the things that are in this inspection realistically things that are catastrophic to the building at its core? Or are these things that you're just typically going to find in a building that is 100 years old? A lot of buildings in New England were built in early 1900s. So especially these large, I shouldn't say larger, but these multifamily 1 to 4 unit building, 2 to 4 unit buildings throughout the Northeast, they're older. So yeah. And we kept each other accountable, and we followed through, and we closed on it.
Now, did you use a realtor to buy it? And did the realtor help you at all, like look at the inspections and kind of go through the property and give you a little insight and stuff? Or did you have a mentor at all? Or did you guys kind of just really do this all on your own in a way?
We did not have a mentor. We weren't in real estate any networking clubs or anything like that, which again, in hindsight, I would not have done it that way. And I would totally advise, like, before you invest, go meet some other investors, have the conversations, because then you have your network there and you have resources to go to if you need help or have questions. We did not, though. And the realtor that we used at the time, my roommate, where I was renting from, he just had gotten his real estate license. So I figured it'd be really convenient for me to just use him. And he didn't have any experience with really single family or multifamily, though. So that was like the only drawback, was if you find an experienced realtor who knows a lot about multifamily, then that's certainly going to be useful to you. For us, we were just like, well, let's go we just wanted to start somewhere. So, but it all worked out. Like, we ended up using that roommate. He sort of helped us with the inspection reports, but I think he was more so leveraging the knowledge of his brokerage with that. And then we kind of knew as well, like, looking at the inspection report, if we had big questions on like a plumbing or electrical issue, that we would go to an electrician or a plumber to get a bit more insight on that. But no, I didn't have a mentor really at the time, or anybody that had more experience with me that I could go ask questions to. And that was like certainly a shortcoming, or a skill that I lacked at the time, or like a resource I lacked at the time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's very important to not only do your research on the front end, not only like read about investing in real estate, maybe this is a podcast, just educate yourself, build yourself up, and just start learning as much as you can about it. It's also good to get real world experience, which is talking to somebody that's done it, because they're going to give you bits and pieces that you might not be able to get from podcasts or books. And then if you run into problems that come up as you're doing the investment and, within that journey, they'll be able to answer very quickly based upon the experience that they've had. So mentors are great. Even it doesn't have to be a mentor. It's just it can be a networking group. It can be friends that that invest as well, that maybe have gone through the issues too. Because instead of, I think there's like a quote, but I can't think of the quote. But basically, you can learn a lot of lessons without going through it, just by having a large network of people that do the same stuff as you. So you can actually progress faster because you already have people within your network that have gone through things that you're trying to learn. And if you can just
Yep.
quickly reach out to them and utilize each other, they'll utilize you. You can quickly go faster through the journey rather than kind of doing it yourself and learning every step of the way, which I'm sure that would burn a lot of people out. Whoever first started real estate investing, God bless them, because they probably learned everything the
A
whole
lot of
way.
burning. Yeah, yeah.
They're the
No,
they're
it's
the
to your
starters.
point, it's like learning from the mistakes of others. And so if you put yourself amongst people who have probably either made the mistakes or have at least got themselves through similar situations, then yeah, you're absolutely going to be better equipped and you'll feel more confident with it. That's not something we didn't really think to do it. I don't think we really, I'm sure if somebody asked us, do you think that real estate networks, networking events exist? We would have said yes, but we didn't really think to do or go to real estate networking events as part of launching ourselves off on this real estate investing journey. Um, I'm very grateful we got through it, but of course it could have perhaps turned out in a bit more of a catastrophic way. So my absolute like advice for somebody is do what you're doing right now. If you're listening to this podcast, that's a great place to start. You're reading and join some real estate networking events. Really easy going on Meetup or Bigger Pockets. There's events that you can find in your area. And I would say like go to a few of those and find some agents that have done house hacking or about their first investment property. Talk to other investors. I mean, it's a great way. You feel so much more confident and prepared to embark on the journey that you're about to embark on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people think that they have to be investing to go to those things. Not at all. There's tons of people that haven't invested at all. They're just trying to learn. And then even if you can get to know somebody and even go walk properties with them, just tag along with them, just learn. You're gonna get so much more insight and be so much more confident going into your first investment property or your second or your third. I mean, you could just keep learning. Real estate is a game of learning and being a sponge, and you're gonna learn everything from everyone. But speaking of buying another property, you went from a normal FHA, which is kind of a pain in itself because that it's a great loan product. Yes, it's a government loan that is low down payment, which 3.5% down, but it does come with, the appraisal and the inspections are a little more stringy. They want to make sure the property has, no lead paint, no chipping paint. The roof has to be okay. No shingles missing, whatever. It's a little more strict compared to conventional. You went from that straight to the FHA 203K as well. So break down that for the audience, what that is, because that's another excellent loan that you can utilize um, as an investor too, especially if you want to build some sweat equity right off the bat. And that's kind of what you did. So give a
Yeah.
little
So
insight on
typical process, if you find, so kind of like what you were saying, if you find a property that's turnkey, so to speak, or has very minor cosmetic issues, you could use a product like a conventional loan or the FHA loan. Yeah, they might complain about railings missing or chipping paint, and you'd have to get the seller to fix that before closing. But all in all, it's relatively easy to repair. If you walk into a property and it is totally like a piece of crap or everything is cosmetically ugly, super outdated, then you run into the issue like, okay, well, if I buy this property and it's clearly a fixer-upper, how do I pay for the rehab?
it.
Now, typically you can go to a bank and you get a rehab loan, and usually they want you to put down 20 to 25% on that, and then they'll cover the bulk, 75 to 100% of the rehab component. But if you don't have enough money saved up to put down, or you don't want to put down, 20, 25%, because we're talking about low down payment loan options, FHA also offers a rehab loan product for these kind of like newer, either first time home buyers or newer investors. Still has to be owner occupied, but what they will do is they'll allow you to put down 3.5% of the sum of the purchase price and the rehab component. There are limits on the amount of money that they'll do depending on your geographic area, but it can get you going in a lot of real estate markets. And you could probably, it'd be more difficult to make it work in Boston or like a really dense urban area where prices are very expensive, but it's definitely certainly possible. So I found a 2/3 family. It was a 2-family that was being used as a 3-family within a city just north of Boston, like 5-10 minutes outside the city. And I found this off of Craigslist. It was an owner who I didn't know at the time was motivated to sell, but he was motivated to sell. They were in pre-foreclosure, I believe, which I could have probably found that out if I'd done more research, looking at the county website or looking at the city website for people that were generally putting their taxes and such. But I found them on Craigslist. They were looking to sell. It was a fixer-upper. The units were banged up. Some of them had holes, huge holes in the ceilings, evidence of a leaking roof. everything was, as I said, outdated. So I knew that this wasn't going to be something that I could just buy with 3.5% down and not do anything to. I'm not handy either, and I didn't really want to be handy on the next project I did.
Yeah.
So I was like, I knew that I needed to account for this rehab within my kind of acquisition plan, whether that be I bring that cash to the table to use out of my pocket, or more ideally, I get that money from the bank. So the 203K product, very similar to the regular FHA loan product. But in this one, you have to have a contractor and you have to have a, what do they call that? I forget the name of the term is, but they have somebody come through who's essentially like your
It's a HUD,
consultant, FHA loan
the HUD,
consultant.
and the HUD advisor. So
Yeah, HUD advisor or like a loan consultant or something like that. They'll
yep.
actually go through and they will tell you what they believe based off of the repairs or the rehab that you want to do. They will estimate what they think that is going to come to so that you can then compare that to your contractor quote. So they're kind of just trying to give you like a little bit more knowledge and experience, because typically the people that are using this loan product have no knowledge or experience using hiring contractors or doing a rehab. I had a little bit of that and I had a decent network at the time, so I felt more comfortable kind of going at it. The FHA consultant advisor was still pretty good and still helpful. But at the end of the day, I ended up feeling really good. So, I mean, my advice to anybody is to have at least 2, but ideally 3+ quotes, having some contractors walk through the building with you. For this, you do need somebody that's going to be familiar with the FHA 203K loan product, because it is extremely different than if a contractor is usually used to working with a bank to get their draws. So the bank would come by, they'd say, okay, have you completed 20% of the work? If so, we'll give you 20% of the funds that we've held in this bank account that we had prepared for this renovation. For the 203K, there's a lot more paperwork that's involved. So you can't just really hire any contractor. You could, but the contractor will probably tank. They will probably not do the administrative work that's required. Therefore, they will not be getting paid. Therefore, they will not be incentivized to keep doing the work, or they will start complaining, or they will run behind and they will focus their attention on other jobs that they have. So I knew right off the bat I needed to find a contractor that had experience with a 203K loan. And I did find one. And I think it's called Build Simple Construction. They did a damn good job. I was very happy with it. They were decently communicative. Younger guys that were doing this, they had done some house hacking themselves, and they saw that there was a need in the market for contractors that could kind of specialize in this area. And so I had them actually quote me on a property in Boston. That was how I first got in contact with them. Didn't end up closing on that property, but then I found this other property just north of Boston, and we ended up closing on that. That one, so you close on that, property's vacant. So I knew that within 2 months I'd start having to pay these mortgage payments out of pocket, and it was a bigger number because it was a more expensive property. It was like $6K a month for these mortgage payments. So every single month that I didn't have tenants in the building and that this construction was going on, it was months that I was taking money out of my own pocket. So these were things that I had to factor. So I knew I needed reserves on this one. It wasn't like that first property where we kind of went into it. I knew for this one I needed to have the reserves. So I did have reserves for this one. The work did run behind, unfortunately. We were aiming to get everything finished by the end of, I think we closed on it in March. Yep, end of March is when we closed on it. So I was hoping to get everything done April, May, June. I want to say 3.5 months is what we were planning for. So like mid-July, end of July latest is what we were thinking. And then the work ended up unfortunately running into September. But I did get tenants in there kind of in the August, beginning of September timeframe. So it ended up working out. There were some overruns, unfortunately. Most of it due to change orders. So me making decisions or changes based off of what the initial plan was, which resulted in some additional costs that I had to absorb. But all in all, I'm very happy with the finished product. The tenants are super happy with it, and it is miles more beautiful than what it looked like when I went into it. We were able to refinish everything, do brand new kitchens, brand new bathrooms, got to do brand new plumbing in the entire building, updated electrical in one of the units that was fully gutted. And the electrical everywhere else was up to code and it was good. So we were good there. Brand new heating systems, brand new AC systems, brand new water tanks. So it really was like almost a gut rehab. It was just shy of a gut rehab because 2 of the units we didn't gut. But all in all, it felt really good. Like it felt like it was like the first time I felt like an actual investor, because I'm in there. It's like what you see on HGTV, you see everybody ripping apart walls and doing stuff. I wasn't doing any of it, obviously. But it was still like I'm the one that orchestrated it. I'm the one that, and that's kind of like what some investors might think that they're entrepreneurs, others not, and I understand. But like ultimately, a business owner or an entrepreneur is somebody who kind of understands the resources that they need to complete a task or get a job done, And that's what I did for this project. Like, I got the resources together to be able to execute on my vision. So I was really proud of that one.
Now, when you initially started, did you initially know that you wanted to use an FHA 203K like right from the bat? You just
Yes. So those first two properties I did with my partner out in Worcester, we did FHA loans. This next property, I was like, I knew that I wanted to find a fixer upper, and I wanted to use this 203K product because I wanted to get rehab experience. That was just something I was looking to do as one of my goals at the time. And I mean, it's already scary to invest in a property,
Yep.
especially if you're newer. So to do a fixer upper where there's a rehab component is another level of sophistication and complexity that I think turns people away. So I was just hungry for it. I was interested in doing it and giving myself a different challenge.
Yeah. So another good thing about the FHA 203K too is like you talked about and touched on is you only put down 3.5%, just like a normal FHA loan. But then you can leverage a lot of construction costs up front. So say, how much was this property when you bought it? Like what was the purchase price, and then what was the amount of construction loan that they gave you to go towards it?
So purchase price was 885,000, which included a 10K seller credit, but it was 885,000, and then the rehab component, I think we budgeted like 125,000 for the rehab, and then there was an additional 15% contingency on top. I forget what that number came to, but it was like 145-ish in total. So we budgeted for 145,000 total there. So that came up to about $1,030,000-ish is what the total purchase price plus the rehab costs were. Now, to your point, like if that had gone according to plan, then I could have come in with as little as 3.5% down, which was about $36,000. But in this particular scenario, because of debt to income requirements, because I was pushing against the FHA loan limit ceiling for that geographic area, I had to come and because I had to pay points to get the interest rate down because of that debt to income situation I was running into. And yeah, I think those were kind of all the components and all the variables. It pushed me up. I couldn't just do 3.5%. In theory, if everything went according to plan, I could have done as little as 3.5%, but I unfortunately couldn't in this scenario. So I had to come to the table with about $75,000. So it was like double what I was initially thinking I'd have to come in on this one with.
Yeah, so like 6 or 7%, right?
Yep, that's where I kind of landed on this one.
So, but even then, like you're talking about 6 or 7% for purchasing a property, getting all the construction costs given to you in a loan to put into the property, which normally if you try to do that through like a hard money lender or construction loan, they usually want 20 to 25 to 30% down. So FHA 203K is an excellent option to do that. And then plus, once you do all that and then you fill the units, I'm sure, did you get an appraisal at the end as well to see what it appraised at and how much equity you might have put into it?
So part of the loan process is they have to come in and do an appraisal, I believe as is, but as part of it, they evaluate the purchase price, but really they care about what is the after repair value, the ARV of the property once you do all those rehab items, because they want to make sure that you're not going to be grossly off from the loan amount that they're providing you. I actually think that they will allow you to go over it. So if they think it only appraises for $1 million, but all in, or the loan amount comes up to like 100 or 1,050,000, I think they'll actually still give you the loan, because I think you have to be within, I don't know, you may know this better. I feel like it's like 10% or 15%.
Yeah, I think it's 100. You can go up to like 110%.
Yeah, of the appraised value, which is an odd concept, and I actually wouldn't recommend somebody does that unless they thought that the appraisal was actually low. So in this particular scenario, though, it appraised at 1,180,000. So based off of the rehab scope that they got at the time, the appraiser felt that my purchase price plus my rehab costs, or plus the rehab that I was doing, the property would end up being valued in the open market at about 1,180,000, and I'd be into it at about 1,030,000. So there was like 100 to 150,000 of wiggle room there. Now I actually think that appraisal was probably on the lower side, and I ended up modifying the scope such that it would probably improve the value drastically. So if I did probably get another appraisal right now, I'd expect it to come in at 1.2 or maybe even higher.
Yeah, and like you got to think about, so you put down $70,000 into this property. You put in a total of what, 1 million
1,030,000 or something or so. It was like
1,030,000, and then it's probably going to appraise at, especially with the market increasing, and it's still appraising right now slowly, like 1.2. So you're walking away. You put down 70,000. You're walking away with an extra like $150,000 or so. So you made $150,000 on your $70,000 investment basically, and utilize
Absolutely.
leveraging all the construction loan, all the insight, and learned a lot about rehab costs and stuff. Um, that's why that loan is so brilliant. I mean, although there's a lot more steps with it, and I'm sure it was
Yeah.
very stressful. And it probably was a pain dealing with contractors that have FHA, and they go a little slower, and then you have to like kind of nag them and stuff. But it's always worth it. Like I always tell people when they come to me, like talking about FHA 203Ks, I say yes, it's not your typical loan, it's not your typical process. It involves a lot more paperwork, more work on your end to like deal with contractors and get quotes and stuff. But in the end, once you're finished with it all, it is definitely worth it for sure.
Yeah.
And as you can tell just from your numbers right there, that's why. And the reason they do 110% is because FHA loans are they're supposed to be for somebody that's going to buy their primary residence and stay there for a long time. So that's the reason they do 110%, because they think you're going to be there for a long time. But as long as you have evidence or like proof that that's what you're trying to do, even though you might move out after a year and do the same thing again. They
Some
don't care.
people might, yes.
Some people might do that, but that's why they do 110%, because they'll give you that wiggle room, because they think you're going to be there for a long time. So it's not as much as a risk of defaulting. Plus, the government helps back the loan a little bit for the lenders with the mortgage insurance premium, and also the FHA funding fee, which
Yeah.
gives lenders a little more risk adverse in case something does happen. That's why they let you go up a little more, which is
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, whoever holds that loan, they're pretty much in a secure position. Like they're going to get paid, and like you said, there's the insurances there to ensure that. But in terms of like the investor's perspective or a first time home buyer, the reason I just wouldn't recommend that is because if you ever got into a situation like what more recently happened, where for whatever reason the interest rates start increasing, or the Fed's objectives change, and you might get into a position where, well, you thought the home was going to be worth 1.2 when it was done, now it's only worth 1.1 for whatever reason. And if that loan amount is pushing up against what it's worth, then you could get yourself into a situation where if you had to sell it, less realtor fees, you might be underwater, which would be really sucky. So, and so my goal on this was, I wouldn't say this is by no means a home run of a rehab. I'd say maybe, is a base hit. But I did, like you said, I learned a lot. It was more of like learning this process. I can say I did it. I managed the contractor. I have decent equity in the building now. And I'm just really proud of the end product. I'm super proud of it. And I've got great tenants in there right now. It's giving me, like, this is the best part of it, is I underwrote it with rents I thought I probably could get for a 3-bedroom about like 2,900 to 3,000. And then now I'm getting about 3,300 for each of those. And then I have kind of that bonus unit on the 3rd floor, which I'm renting out to as a medium-term rental to a travel nurse. That one's getting me 2,800 a month. Granted, I have to pay for the utilities in that one, but the utilities are at most a couple hundred a month. So I am like, might have been a base hit of a deal, but like in terms of what I thought I was going to get for rents, I feel like it's a home run, because I'm well over like 20% where I thought I was going to be on that. So
yeah, and like even you got to think about the whole process for long term too. So like I would say it's even a home run, because you got a property for, again, 7% down. It's like 70,000, which sounds like a lot to a lot of people, which it is. I mean, that's a lot of money. But compared to what a normal person would have paid using a conventional loan or investment loan, they would have had to put down 25%, and 25% of what? It was like 800, 900,000. So
maybe 250.
They put it on like 250 for it. So you're leveraging a loan that you made the property beautiful. You're getting top rents now. Plus you got it in a very appreciating area right outside of Boston. Boston is just an appreciation haven. Now, people say not to rely on appreciation because it's like icing on a cake. But when you're in markets kind of like Boston, when you're in markets like San Francisco, when you're in markets like those big cities, those hubs, you can kind of like 90% kind of rely on the appreciation.
Yeah,
just look at the history of the markets, and I guarantee you're not going to see Boston tanking unless like it gets hit by like some bomb or something crazy. But not to like say like bad stuff like that, but I mean,
my
the
advice
future is great for those.
I know, not to be too grim on that, but not really. My advice though, for I mean, if you want the cash flow, you have to go to a higher cash flow market. You're just not going to get that in a super urban metro area like Boston, New York, whatever. But if you can afford to get something within a metro area, and even if you're at break even and you've got time on your side, I would recommend it because, like you said, you will ultimately get that appreciation, high likelihood in the long run. And if you're breaking even today, you'll probably be cash flowing within a couple of years as rents in the markets increase. So I would say if you can do it and you can swing it, it's not a bad idea. I have the cash flow market, right? Because I have Worcester, which is a little bit more of a higher cash flow market. And then now I'm closer to Boston where I have a little bit of appreciation. So I feel like I'm a little bit more diversified now. And I really like that. The cool thing about this though, is you said, I had to come to the table with 70,000 or so. That 70,000 actually came out of that Worcester property because when I was living there, I got a home equity line of credit. Like the market appreciated. My loan amount was at the time was like maybe 300,000. The property had appreciated to like 500,000 plus. So I knew I had some equity there. So I decided to pull out a home equity line of credit. Originally, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. I was like, maybe I'll use this to improve the property. But I ultimately decided it'd be strategic for me to take some of that home equity line and use it to purchase more properties. And I used some of that to buy this deal. So even though it was 70,000, and you still have to consider opportunity cost of money, it's not like I had to go out and pull that out of my bank account. I just pulled that out of the home equity line of credit. So, it's still again, opportunity cost needs to be considered in that situation, but it felt a little different because I kind of had earned that equity through stabilizing and getting that appreciation in Worcester. And then I redeployed that equity to buy another property closer to Boston, which is where I was living. I've been living there and I'm continuing to live there. It's technically my permanent residence right now. Yep. I've been doing a little traveling back and forth, so I can't technically rent that unit out until I hit that 1 year mark, which I'm not going to. But I've got that travel nurse that's going to be able to move in there right at the 1 year mark, so we're good there.
Yeah, and one thing that I always harp on too is like when you're young in the game of real estate, it's people always say it's a young man's game, which it is, because I wouldn't say it always is, but it's more beneficial to young people because you can go into real estate deals, maybe not cash flow, just break even. And in, 10, 15, 20 years, if you're buying in the right markets, you're going to have a phenomenal amount of wealth after a while, just from having that property and maintaining it. So what I think about myself and what I tell people when they're getting an analysis paralysis about like, I need cash flow. And they're looking at markets like Boston, they're looking at markets like, very like high cities, like expensive cities, like San Francisco, Austin, Texas, like things like that. They're like, I need cash flow. I'm like, well, you're young. Just try to get as many doors as you can. Just try to get doors and try to break even. Maybe get a little cash flow, like $100 a door. That would be great. Because if you're 20, 25, and by the time you're 45 and you have those properties, they're going to be cash flowing by then for sure, because rents are always increasing. If you look at the rental chart, it's always up. 2, the amount of appreciation you're going to get, which is an average of like 3.5% a year without COVID. Like, forget about COVID. That was like, it was ridiculous.
That was some great icing on that cake.
Someone broke the icing when they were putting
I'm a diabetic now.
Exploded. Yeah, he's a diabetic. But like speaking about like Ryan's property here, like say just use rough numbers, like it's $1 million property, and he bought it, and he's, how old are you right now, Ryan?
29. Turned
29
this year though.
Oh boy, so he's turning 30. But anyway, so he has this property and it's $1 million, and say, it's going by just the average appreciation rate of the market, which is like 3.5%. And Boston is very historically like at that rate, sometimes even higher. So every single year he's going to be making $35,000 in equity by having the property. Mm-hmm. That's somebody's salary for a year. Like, it's insane to think about that. Yes, you can't like take that money and go do stuff with it. Like, it's not liquid. But if it gets to the point, then you can maybe do a HELOC, take that money and go buy another property and just keep stacking them up to the point that you have a whole lot of loans leveraged, like under management, to the point that it's just going to slowly appreciate and you're going to make a ton of wealth. And that's how wealth is built. In real estate, a lot of people try to get into it and they're all about, cash flow. I want to make money really quick. I want to be a millionaire today in real estate. Real estate is a long-term patient game. Young people have a high advantage because they have time on their side where they can get these properties in these markets and wait, and then it'll eventually be worth a ton. And then you can also diverse, like Ryan is doing. You can buy some appreciating market ones, and you can also buy cash flowing market ones. The cash flowing ones might not appreciate as much, but if you have a happy balance, then you have some cash flowing, so you have passive income coming from those properties. and then you have the appreciating one. It's kind of like buying stocks and bonds, because bonds will always grow. It'll always give you that slow growth, and then stocks might give you those ups and downs, like the cash flowing properties might. But it's cool to see how you can diversify within real estate as well, like similar to like stocks, or like you do cryptos and stuff like that. So it's awesome that you got to use those two loans. Now, did you get rid of your other FHA? Did you use the FHA 203K?
I did actually, yeah. So I had refinanced because we got that COVID appreciation. I had refinanced out of that FHA loan into a traditional loan. So I didn't have the FHA there. So that did free up eligibility to be able to use that FHA loan product again. I know there's technically a couple ways around. There are ways to reuse the FHA loan, even if you have an outstanding FHA loan, but I know it's extremely difficult. And I was already doing something that was extremely difficult, trying to find a rehab property that would fit within the loan limits of the greater Boston market. So I didn't have, I didn't have that much appetite for something that was going to be at that point nearly impossible. So yes, I did refinance out of that first FHA loan, freeing up my FHA loan eligibility for the next property.
Yeah. Which is beautiful. Utilizing the low down payment loan again and again. You want to leverage.
Yeah.
Leverage is a big thing in real estate. If you can leverage, do low down payments, then you got to try to do it.
Absolutely. If the numbers work too. And I'm kind of just like trying to keep making forward progress. As you said, keep getting more doors under my wing. And I figure like worst case scenario, which this is not even realistic to me, if this building did not appreciate at all for 30 years, I'm still guaranteed to be a millionaire because it's worth $1 million plus today.
Yeah.
In 30 plus years, if it really didn't appreciate a single dollar, it'd be worth $1 million and it'd be paid off. And granted, $1 million in 30 years might not be what it certainly wouldn't be what it is today, but it's not going to not appreciate, that's just not realistic. You can't guarantee it, but we're trying to be realistic here and reasonable, and obviously it's going to. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, you're touching on, if it doesn't appreciate, then at least you're getting the principal pay down from your tenants. They're paying for your whole loan, getting cash flow from the property as well. And all three of those alone will make you a millionaire in like 30 years because you have a property that's paid off and it's worth $1 million with no appreciation. But I mean, it's going to appreciate. It'll probably worth like $2.5 million in 30 years, which is ridiculous.
Exactly. It is ridiculous. And you're totally right. I'm not even talking about any of the other benefits of real estate. I'm someone just straight up talking appreciation here. If I hold it for 30 years, it's worth $1 million, same as today, and it's paid off. But yeah, on top of everything, there's tax benefits. I'll get cash flow, and you're right. It's probably going to be realistically worth. I mean, looking at the historical trends of Boston, every single, I would say, 8 to 10 years, a building's value increases 100%. So, duplicates like that. So yeah, so it probably will be worth about 3 times what it is today, if I even hold it. Then I don't know, because I mean, that's kind of my thing. Is I try to like force the appreciation as quickly as possible, and then I can decide, do I want to hold on to it for the cash flow, or now that I have this equity in it, is there a better use of that equity? Can I extract that equity, or do I just have to sell the property to extract it? And then is there a better place for me to deploy that capital to do the same thing, to rinse and repeat, to force the appreciation of another building, either by rehabbing it or, just making it perform better as an asset overall.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's kind of what you're doing with your partners too, right? So during this whole process of you doing the 203K, FHA 203K and stuff, you were working with partners to get as many doors as you can together. So were you just trying to find the best ways to get as many doors because you were kind of tight on funds? So you're just trying to partner and get as many people to just grab properties, try to grab doors. Like what was the whole portion of this? How did you get these partners? And first of all, what do the partnerships look like? And how would you explain this to someone that doesn't understand partnerships at all? They're scared to get in a partnership. Like they think people wouldn't want to. Like what are the benefits of having a partnership too?
Yeah. So, I mean, the whole reason why I wanted to do this investing to begin with, I guess at the end of the day, was to achieve financial freedom and financial independence. I want to have more control over my time. And I ideally, at the end of the day, be able to control my hours and where I focus my effort and time, whether it's spending time with friends and family, or whether it's doing something I love, like real estate investing activities. In 2021, I want to say 2021, I believe. Yes. I started going to networking events, real estate-based networking events, which I hadn't done before. It was during COVID. Things were starting to open back up. Me and that original partner from Worcester, we had gone our separate ways. And I was like, okay, I think I'm stronger and will be better off, one, going to real estate networking events, and talking to like-minded individuals. But two, it gives me the potential to meet some people to collaborate on future projects and deals with. And at the very first meetup I went to, I met this gentleman named Matt Davis. He is a little younger than me, but kind of similar situation. Was just buying his first property, and he was also buying his first commercial multifamily real estate property. So 5 units or more, it's considered commercial real estate in that category. Different type of lending products that would be used for that. And so I was like super impressed by that. It's what I want to do. The next step I want to take in my journey is I wanted to start buying commercial real estate multifamily property. And one of the reasons I like doing that is because those are typically valued based off of the net operating income. So if you can increase the revenues or decrease the expenses, you make the property's value better overall. So you can force the appreciation just by making it by stabilizing it and operating it more efficiently than the last owner. So in a way, it's literally like a business. You can buy a business and you can make it operate better, become more profitable, and you boost the value of the business. Exact same with commercial real estate. And I really like that component of it, which not to say that's not true with residential, but residential real estate, 1 to 4 units, that's typically more so looking at comps. So you could have 2 identical buildings. The one across the street could be more profitable, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to, or it could be more profitable and make more money, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily worth more in the eyes of an investor, or certainly in the eyes of an appraiser or the bank. So that's kind of, so that's where it's on that line. So it's like, I really like that. So I met Matt, started talking with him. We met another gentleman who was a contractor named John Marchese. And we, toward the end of mid 2021, decided to start a mastermind together and kind of accountability meeting where each week we'd set goals, we'd meet up and we talk to each other. And we had no interest, I wouldn't say no interest, but we weren't talking about partnering together. That's not really what we were doing. We're just doing this mastermind to kind of keep each other accountable and again, talk to like-minded individuals on a regular basis. By the end of it, we were starting to learn each other's strengths and weaknesses and what we like to work on and what we didn't. And we had some overlap on what we wanted to invest in and what we wanted to accomplish together. So we decided to look for our first property together. And the way I found the first property, actually, I thought was really awesome. I started sending out direct mailers to try to find off-market property, off-market leads. So I'd send out batches of letters to different geographic areas saying, hey, I'm interested in buying your apartment building. If you're interested in selling, please contact me. And had somebody reach out from Ayer, Massachusetts. He was a landlord. He had 2 or 3 buildings there, and he was looking to sell one of them, which was a 6-family. And he wanted what I thought was a very reasonable price. He wanted less than $100,000 a unit, which was atypical. If you're within the greater Boston area, 495 belt, it's very difficult to find things that are, one, just at $100,000 a door. Like that's pretty difficult to find. But 2, less than that. So I was, are these banged up? We weren't sure. We wanted to walk the property. We thought there was a lot of potential there. The rents were decent for what the price was at, but they were very low compared to the market. I think at the time they were at like $3,500 or $4,000 total a month. So we decided to acquire that property together, and we closed on it in 2022 in like April, I think, or May. So I had a lot going on for me in 2022. I thought it was a good year for me. I started networking more. I got that FHA 203K project, the rehab. Then we got this first property together, which was our first time in this kind of newly formed partnership working together. And I really liked everybody. I mean, you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, and you want complementary strengths. So there are things that, like, for instance, me and Matt have a lot of overlap. And so I try to just make a conscious effort to say, if Matt wants this in his wheelhouse on this project, I'll let him drive that and not step on his toes. And I think we all do a good job of reciprocating that. John's more of the contractor side of things. Matt's more of, he likes fundraising, he likes asset stabilization, he likes running the numbers too. So we've got 2 people running the numbers. I've got that accounting background, and I like working in Excel. So we can kind of be a check and balance on one another. He likes doing the assets. Matt likes doing asset stabilization. I like that too, but I don't really care. I don't have a preference. It frees me up to be able to go find more leads if he's taking care of managing the property management companies. So that was kind of one of the things I learned from that first partnership that failed was, 1, I want everybody to hold their weight, but 2, I also don't want too much overlap with strengths, because then everybody wants to do the same thing and everybody's going to have input and everybody's going to want control, and that's going to potentially end up, or it's a recipe for disaster. So I would say, if you want to enter a partnership, 1, find somebody who you respect, who you like their methodology, the way that they think, the way they analyze things. But 2, make sure that you guys will have separate areas that you can each focus in within the partnership. Not to say you can't all contribute to each area, but you want probably a main person to head up something, and then everybody else can maybe offer their input or just kind of be like an advisor or just a secondary opinion type of thing. Because if, as I said, if you got too many people offering their thoughts, it could spiral out of control or cause tension or conflict.
Yeah, especially when you're like dealing with tenants too. So like if Matt is the one that's kind of handling the property management side, you guys don't have a property manager, right? It's like you guys are doing it in-house at the
No, we
moment.
do actually. So it was kind of one of the things I thought was a smart thing, because where I got burned in the first partnership was I was a property manager, didn't compensate myself for it. Then we entered the partnership, but I had been doing the property management for a year and a half. So for this one, I said, no, I want to underwrite these deals, assuming we're bringing in a property management company, and I want to outsource the property management so that if one of us isn't happy with the way it's being managed, it's not like a personal attack against any of the partners.
Yep.
We can step on and say, nope, we need a different property manager, or we need to tell them to do it differently. So we do use property managers for those properties that we own together.
Yeah, and do you feel that going from managing yourself to property manager, does that bring up, like, is it worth it? Because a lot of people talk about, not using property managers. You obviously have to pay them to run the property. But
Yes.
for me personally, the second that I hired a property manager and got them under management and like doing my landlording for me, the amount of stress relief that I could take away from managing that stuff, even though, yeah, I got to pay him like about $1,000 a month for my properties. Like, yeah, that could be going to me, but I'm also have so much more time to do other things, like look for deals, actually focus on like myself, my personal growth, rather than like waking up in the morning. I would tend to be like, my whatever water's leaking. Like, I don't want to hear that text, because that text like ruins my whole day. Like, I want someone else to deal with that and like take care of that stuff for me, and then I'll just look at the finances after. But do you agree that it's worth it? It's worth property managers for sure, like hiring them.
Yeah. So there's definitely a time and a place to self-manage your own properties. When you're first starting out, it's not feasible. You can't sacrifice that income, that cash flow. You really need that in-house. So you're kind of putting in a little bit more. It might not be handy, but the way you can put in that sweat equity is self-managing. But at the end of the day, when I think about scalability, by keeping the property management in-house, I worry that I'm going to be stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. That it may feel like I'm saving a lot of money in the front end, but it's really stopping me from making a lot more by scaling quicker. And yeah, it might be 5-10%, wherever you are on that scale of what you're paying your property manager. But like you said, if it frees you up to do higher value activities, then at the end of the day, it's going to be a way better strategic decision. And so that's what we're trying to do, is like, we're actively involved in the stabilization and like the rehab stuff, but the day-to-day of answering phone calls and dealing with tenants and telling people that rents are going up, or dealing with an eviction or something that's not paying, we're outsourcing that. So that does free us up, because right now we all have, I shouldn't say we all, but we all have other jobs that it's taking up a lot of our time in a given year, but we all want to end up waning off of those W-2 type of roles and going on to more focusing on 100% real estate. One of the partners is 100% involved in real estate, which was awesome for him. But two of us, myself and Matt, we are kind of in the situations where we want to do less W-2 work and be doing more real estate investing work. So that's why it's really important to us to scale as quickly as possible and to think about what are the processes we need in place in order to do that. And one of those is outsourcing property management.
Yeah, and also forming partnerships help you scale a lot quicker too. Because could you have bought this property yourself, or do you need all three of you to do it correctly, like to get the property?
It's easier, and it makes me feel more comfortable knowing that I'm not the only one making decisions. I have others to bounce ideas off of. Yeah, I probably could have done it myself. I probably had enough equity at the time to put in the down payment, but I'm glad I did it with partners. And again, we get to divide and conquer. And you're totally right. Not only do you get the monetary resources and the intellectual resources of each partner, but you also get their whole network. And so one of the partners, he's later on in life, he's more established in his career. He's got a good network of higher net worth individuals who are seeing what we're doing. They don't want to necessarily actively manage their own real estate portfolio because they don't have the time, or they don't necessarily want to put in the time to learn and understand everything, but they're happy to provide money either as a loan or coming in as a limited partner. And that's kind of how we were talking earlier about syndications. And that's where we want to take this, is ultimately bring in people who want to share in the benefits of real estate, the monetary benefits and some of the tax benefits. They won't be active participants in it. We'll be running the show as the general partners or the sponsors.
Yep.
We'll be putting the deal together, and we'll be bringing in other people to put into a pool of money as investors, and we'll share those returns with them. And they'll be getting very favorable returns, far higher than they would generally get in the market. And and backed by an asset that we have control over, and that's typically very stable when you look historically at the market. So that's one of the, this is like gets me all juiced up and excited. Is thinking
Yeah.
about how can I enrich those around me, even if they're not literally actively investing with me and helping me choose the property manager and choose a strategy for stabilizing the property. But they're like, hey, I see what you're doing. I think that's cool. I want to diversify where I invest. I don't want to just invest in stocks and bonds. I don't want to just invest in crypto. They want to invest in real estate too. And I can say, hell yeah, like let's get your money in here. We can get you a solid return, whether it be 8% plus, somewhere in that range. 8-15% a year is very, I think, decently conservative for syndication. And it's certainly something that we can do. And it's what we've easily been executing on as partners and within our individual investment portfolio.
Yep.
And with those benefits. So that was kind of, and I know we touched upon it earlier, but that is the direction that my partners and I at Blue Canyon we're going is bringing this into syndications. And we're scheming up a couple of things right now, actually, that we want to. So we just made an offer on a 69 unit portfolio, which I'm praying we get that offer accepted. I'm super excited for it. Found this again off market through one of my letters. Individual passed away. He's got this portfolio that he left to his family. The family doesn't want it. They're interested in finding somebody to take it off their hands, and it's the perfect portfolio for us to acquire. It really complements everything that we've done to this point in our skill set and the types of properties we've managed. So that will be a syndication. Now, if that goes through, this will be our kind of first proper syndication together as partners, where we will go out and we will raise money for acquiring the property. And those people will be limited partners with us for the duration of the hold, which will be like 3 to 7 years or so.
Yeah. So to hop into syndications too, can you break down just a little more Barney style for the audience what a syndication is, like in the beginning? Like, how are you making these offers? Are you going into it knowing how much money you have to raise? Do you raise the money before? Kind of like, what's the process of it? Even though you're new doing it and learning as you're going, but based upon just your knowledge and learning from maybe individuals that we've spoken to that have done it, just give your take on it.
Yeah. So the way that, from our research and what we're talking with others, the way that we're going to be tackling this is we first want to find a deal and do like the preliminary underwriting where we say, okay, this is going to offer strong enough returns where we'll be able to raise the money to acquire the property and pay those investors steady distributions on their money so that they're getting returns on the front end. So that's kind of the first thing, is we're looking for a deal that meets certain criteria. Then, kind of going into the mechanics of the syndication, and I kind of talked about some of these terms earlier. So we, as the main investors, we're going to be the general partners or the sponsors, and then we'd be bringing in who would be very limited partners. Those would be like those investors we're raising the money from. And the way that you split the returns and the cash flows is going to be different for each syndication. But what this is going to do is it's going to allow us to come to the deal with a minimal amount, but end up owning a material amount that is not commensurate with what we contributed. It's what commensurate to what we're contributing in knowledge and value, but it's not commensurate in what we're contributing monetarily. So for this deal, for example, let's say can keep the numbers super simple. If it's $1 million deal, we might get 75% of that, or 750,000 from the bank. And then we got to come up with that. We have to come up with the remaining portion of that, which is, let's say it's a down payment of 250,000. But with the syndication, we don't have to come up with the $250,000 personally. We can maybe come up with 50,000 of that 250,000, and then go raise the additional 200,000 from these limited partners, these investors. And then again, they have no say in the operations of the business. They are limited. They're just there providing the funds, and they get a percentage of all of the returns based off of how we arrange that on the front end, which most likely will be doing something like a 60-40 or 70-30 split, where 60 to 70% of the returns are going to those limited partners. The remaining 30 to 40% is coming to us as the GPs. But at the end of the day, we only came to the deal with 5% of all of the resources that was needed to acquire the deal, right? Because I got 75% from the bank, I got the remaining 20% from those limited partners. So we're coming to the deal with 5%, but we're ending up walking away with 30 to 40%. Some people might think that's not fair, but obviously, like at the end of the day, we're the ones responsible for it. We're the ones guaranteeing the loan. We're the ones that our reputation is on the line should the deal fail, and we're going to pay back our investors before we pay us. Always.
Well, it's similar to like being like a hedge fund manager. Like hedge funds make millions and millions off of people that invest because they're the ones that are allocating the money into the proper markets to make their clients money. If the clients wanted to do it themselves, then they keep all the money themselves, but they don't have time for that. They would rather just have these guys make them money, which is a really good return that they're getting. But yes, they do get like commission and money off of that because they're the ones making the deals happen. Similar to the syndication, you're doing all the work. This deal would never happen without you guys. It would never progress without you guys. They would never get this money without you guys. And then the equity at the end, the payoff of the equity too, like it would, if that's the end goal of the syndication too, it would never happen without the progress that you guys made, raising the rents and making the property better and more valuable. So people can look at it that way, but if people have that mindset of looking at it that way, like, oh, you guys only put in 5%, I put in 20%, and I'm not getting as much money. Well, if you have that mindset, that's a scarcity mindset, and you won't make money like in any investment because you don't understand the value of one, money is a value, obviously, and then hard work and education, and getting stuff done, like executing, is the other value. And if you put those two together, then that's how you actually make money in real estate and investing. So
I mean, they're alternative.
But
no, you're not cutting me off at all, and I appreciate every single comment you're making because you're absolutely right. And their alternative at the end of the day is you can come to us, you can do 8% plus, or you can go invest in the stock market where you don't know who has control over the business. A lot of the value of the stock is ultimately going to be based off of the whims of the market. And maybe you're getting dividends, but maybe not. And if you are, they're certainly not going to be 8%. That's very rare to find stocks that are yielding 8% dividends. So if you want something that's a bit more stable, where you're going to know the people you're investing with, you'll be able to, at the end of the day, you're going to know it's a tangible asset you can go drive by. There's a little bit of rapport there with us building that rapport with those limited partners. So I think overall it's a safer bet. And yeah, there's a little bit more risk, but there's also higher returns. I shouldn't even say there's a little bit more risk. I mean, one might think there's a little bit more risk. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I can understand that sentiment. But at the end of the day, they're getting better returns. So I think it's all balanced out. And at the end of the day, I think if you're communicating what the expectation on returns is, then, and they agree to that, they're probably not going to care much about what the monetary contributions are for the limited partners versus the general partners. So I think we're good there. And to your point, I don't think too many people will be disturbed or upset about the situation in the background. They'll just be happy to be getting their return.
Yeah, as long as they're getting paid and making money. I mean, for potentially just giving you money is pretty cool. Plus, they're making it.
Stacks.
They also make stuff better because you're taking a building that maybe is underperforming, it's not that great, and you're renovating it, giving people a better place to live. You're providing value to the community rather than just throwing money to the stock market and maybe going into a business that you don't know what's going on with it, and it might make you money, might not. But it's something cool about investing into a physical asset that will be there for years to come, that people live in, have families in. There's a lot of history behind it. It's just something cool about that. And plus, being a syndicated too, one of the cool benefits of it is obviously paying your investors. Like, yes, you're going to make money as well. But just doing that and paying like your investor back and making that money is just something awesome about it. Like,
yeah.
And
seeing the smile on their face. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or if they're getting a check that's like, whoa, I didn't think I was getting this much. I thought you said 8%, and maybe that year they're getting 12.
Like, well,
it's like,
yeah, you overperformed, so you're getting more because we
Right,
promised this amount. So you get the percentage of that amount, and you're getting more. Then his little bonus check too. Like the equity is higher, his little bonus check. They're just like pumped, and then they want to go into with you again.
Yep.
But yeah, there's like just something about that, and I forget what's going with that, but I just totally lost my train of thought about syndications. But anyway, yes, syndications are definitely one of the stepping stones and one of the places that I want to get to as well. There's something cool about just, building up a team, building up a whole plan to make a huge asset like that become more profitable, and then giving back money to investors. Now, people might be scared of doing this. How are you mentally preparing for a syndication? You're going from, three family to a 6-family, you said, and I think you had another 6-family or something, right?
Another 5-family in there as well. Yeah. So that first seller that I found off market, he had another property that we then acquired off of him within like the next 1 or 2 months. So last year, I got my 3-family personally, and then I also got the 5 and the 6-family with my partners together. So we got 11 units cumulatively as partners in 2022. So yeah, how am I mentally going from 11 units to maybe
That's 69, like a 69, whatever.
Yes. So what I am finding is once you once you understand that you can delegate work and trust who you're hiring, and that you know how to competently hire somebody like a property manager, things get miles better. And there's economies to scale. I mean, I know that's kind of a buzzword used a lot, but there's 100% truth to that. And if you're listening to like the Brandon Turners and the Grant Cardones, like they constantly push this message that the bigger deals are somehow easier. And it's because they're not designed to be run by little mom and pops. They're designed to be run by teams. There's an expectation you're going to be outsourcing things to those groups of individuals who have businesses that specialize in those particular areas that you're hiring them for. And when you organize all those resources together, the properties, they're ultimately small businesses. The businesses will get run. It's kind of like you might be the CEO of the business, but you can't run the whole business on your own. Sure, some businesses, but large businesses where you want to be, those ones you need a team beneath you. And so that's what this is all about. It's kind of like we're just CEOs and we're hiring every single position that we need to fulfill a certain duty within the organization, if you will. So 69 units to me, it's like, well, I know I can do 5, and there's nothing that's really changing with these. There's just more of them. So we just need to make sure that we're hiring somebody who has the bandwidth to be able to manage that many units. But other than that, it's really just managing the property manager, setting a strategy, coming up with that strategy as a team. Renovations, things we're not going to be delegating to the property management company. Those are things we're going to have to think about more. But that's why we have a contractor on the team. Every single obstacle, you just need to find the resource, whether it's a human being or knowledge, that's going to help you get to the solution. And that's what all of it is. It's almost like what life is. It seems like that's what making money is all about. It's just literally about solving problems. The more problems that you solve, the more money that you can make. So
yeah, and it's teamwork too. So like, say someone's like, well, what if I get a deal in a contract? I don't know what to do at all. If you get a deal in a contract that has very good numbers, you can just take that deal to anybody that's done this before, and you say, hey, I got this deal on the contract and I don't know what to do really, but I want to syndicate it. And that guy that's syndicated before, I'm sure he'll pick up the phone and I'm sure he'll look at it, and I'm sure that he'll be like, I will join you on this journey because I know how to do this and this and this. And then you just learn from him, and he's going to basically take the wheel, I guarantee, because he sees the money that can be made there. He's going to help you fundraise. He's going to help you find the property manager, and you just tagging along with him. Maybe he's going to take a little bit more of the profit as a GP. You'll be kind of like a junior GP under him.
mm-hmm.
But the amount of experience you're going to get from that is going to bring you light years ahead of anybody else that is just starting to do syndications as well. And it's just because you got a good deal on a contract and you brought it to somebody. Good deals cause ripple effects. Just get a good deal on contract and figure out the money, figure out the plan, figure out everything else after, because you have time. It's not like, especially these big deals, like you get a deal on a contract. It's not like I need the money tomorrow. Like they're big deals. They take a while to put together, and the seller knows that because they probably bought it the same way. So they know, like, yeah, you get deals on the contract. You got like 60 days to like put stuff together. You got like 60 days to like raise money. You got like 60 days to like get a loan. You got like 60 days to do your inspections, due diligence, whatever, and then closing. And then you can even prolong it. Like, say you don't hit the 60 days, you can tell the seller like, hey, we need like another 30 days. The seller will probably be like, okay, are you close? You just got to keep in communication. People think that it's like so quick. Yes, you got to work fast. You got to be diligent with your efforts. You can't just like sit there for 60 days with not do anything, but you have time. Like,
you're hitting upon a super valid point that I've never really distinguished, but that is absolutely the case, which is that for the larger deals, there is an expectation that there's going to be a due diligence period. With maybe some of the smaller properties, you want to run the numbers and you want to be like really confident on the front end, or pretty confident, and you can still build in due diligence clauses so that like you'll learn more down the road and you can back out of the deals. But it's more so the case for the bigger deals. Like, you're not going to get all the information you need on the bigger deals. It's impossible to get. So you're making a offer based off of the best information you have at the time, based off all the data points you have. And if it's accepted, then you move on to the due diligence stage, which is where you're going to dig in and check all of your underlying assumptions, and then decide if you still want to proceed with that deal. And just like you said, it's usually in that 45 to 90-day range, depending on how big these deals are. Some of them are massive. Some of them do an inspection. Imagine doing an inspection on a 300-unit building. That's going to take a lot of time. You got to check mechanics, you got to check HVAC. Yeah, that's going to take a lot of time. So just like you're saying, if you're decently sure about the numbers, once you get it under contract, you can then go to your network and say, hey, I've got a deal under contract. I'm pretty sure it's a good deal, but I also am do you agree? Do you want to JV this? Or do you want to joint venture with this on me? Do you want to help me raise the fund? Or you've done syndications before, sir or madam, will you help me with the syndication? We can partner up. You can use your resources to get the limited partners into it. But you're totally right. If you have a good deal, you'll be able to raise some money. I'm a firm believer in that. And that's not even an original thought by me. That's been said many times by way more experienced investors. And I agree. I agree with it. I preach it.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't let money be a barrier. Like even when I first started investing in real estate, and it still comes up now, it's like, oh, I don't have money. You don't, yes, money is important. Cash is king. Like you can get more deals faster that way. But if you get deals are more important than cash, because you get deals, you can find someone that has cash that understands investing in real estate, and they'll help you out. They'll get you to where you want to go, as long as the returns matter, like make sense. But I'm sure we could talk about this all day. We could talk about syndications all day because there's a lot into it. But let's hop into kind of wrapping this up, just to because we're over like an hour here, but basically
we'll trim this down. We'll trim it down.
But like so we talked about some house hacking with FHA. We talked about the FHA 203K. We talked about doing commercial investments with partners, and then we talked about syndications. Now, where do you get a lot of this information yourself, like educating yourself? Is there like certain books that you read? Is there certain podcasts that you can point people to that they can start looking into? Where did you start, and kind of what do you listen to now to keep you going?
Yeah, so easiest place for people to start if you don't have a lot of money is go to networking events, because you can find free ones of those, and it's the cost of transportation that's going to get you there. Podcasts are also free. You can find a lot of YouTube videos. There's one, Real Estate CPA, I think it's called, or Tax Smart Real Estate Investors on YouTube. I have, like I said, I have an accounting background and I have my CPA license. I don't practice my CPA, like I don't do taxes, but I like the tax knowledge, especially the real estate tax knowledge. So there's Tax Smart Real Estate Investors. It's a great, phenomenal channel. Matt Davis, one of my partners, actually turned me on to it. They've got some great content. They've got some content on cost segregation studies. They've got some content on syndications. I did a ton of research the other day, just going through YouTube videos on syndications, figuring out how a lot of them are structured, common like legal structures, common equity splits on those. Again, it's also something you can find books on. One of the books that has stayed with me since the beginning of my investing journey was called Crushing It in Apartments and Commercial Real Estate by Brian Murray. And I think he actually was on a Bigger Pockets podcast, I believe a couple. But Crushing It in Apartments and Commercial Real Estate, it's a great book. It's black with red font. I think it's actually really cool aesthetically. But it's about this gentleman who was a teacher, and he buys his first apartment.
Is that what made you buy it, the cover? Did you read a book by its cover?
No. Well, it helped. It definitely helps. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Marketing is important. Branding is important. But it's a great book. It's talked about this gentleman who was a teacher, and he bought his first apartment building. Talks about everything he did to stabilize it, and it was just like such a good lesson. And he took something that was a true diamond in the rough. This thing was in a bad neighborhood, horrible tenants, drug deals happening inside the building, people urinating inside the elevators, and he turned it around. Got the police department, got the whole city on his side, turned it into this beautiful building. And he was there every single day doing a lot of the work himself. Not necessarily the best thing to do. I mean, he could have probably outsourced some of that, but he wanted to be familiar with everything that was going on there. And I just love the story, I love the journey. And that's what ignited my passion for commercial multifamily real estate investing. So yeah, podcasts, I mean, everybody's going to find different things, but for starting out, Bigger Pockets podcast was a huge one for me. And then a lot of the books and content that they push out was a great place for me to start. And networking events is really, really what I have felt has propelled me to this point. And now I pick and choose the content I want to consume. So I'm really like focusing on syndication stuff. There's another syndication book. I don't know what it's called, but that's where I focus my attention now.
Yeah. I mean, you should probably spend the first 3 to 6 months of your real estate investing journey just reading, listen to the podcast, just consume as much as you can, because that's where you first get a little more confident in education from other people to be able to take the next step into real estate. But you can only listen to so much, and then you should jump right in and get your first property, and then you learn as you go, and then you can start picking and choosing like Ryan's doing with how he wants to navigate his journey now, because now he's figuring out things that he wants to do, like going towards syndications rather than going towards commercial owning distribution centers or something. There's a ton of options in real estate, which is awesome. So Ryan, just to wrap this up here, I just want to give you a moment just to talk more about how people can contact you. Like, what are your social media handles? Some meetups in the area that you go to, like if there's people that are listening that are in the area that you recommend. If you have anything else you want to just touch on, you have the floor, basically, to say whatever you want.
Well, yeah, easiest way to get in contact with me would be through social media. So I'm at Ryan R. Emrich on Instagram, and then what is it? Fly Rye Real Estate Guy on TikTok. So FLYRY is Fly Rye, and then Real Estate Guy. Fly Rye Real Estate Guy. And I'm still building the social media brand. Like, I don't post as much as I want to. But if you ever want to reach out to me, you can easily find me on there. You can find me on LinkedIn, Ryan R. Emrich on there. And then networking events. A lot of the networking events I go to are based out of the New England area. Candor Realty out of Lowell has a good amount of simplified real estate meetups that I'll pop into. So they have ones in Waltham. They have them in Lowell. They have them in Gardner, Massachusetts. So I'll pop into a couple of those. But yeah, Instagram I'd say is the best way, or obviously they can reach out to you, and I'm sure you can get them in contact with me as well.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you can always contact me and I'll just send you to whoever you want to talk to. After you talk to me. No, I'm kidding. Yes. But all right, yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Ryan. I mean, we could have dissected a lot more, but we'll have to have you on again, especially if you get a syndication on the contract. We can go through that whole process a little more in depth as you are learning doing a syndication, which is going to happen because you're visualizing it, you're executing it, you're trying
it's on my vision board. So yeah, it's going to come true. It has to come true, right?
Yeah, you just think about it every day and you just take steps towards it, and it's bound to happen. That's just how the world works, and that's how everybody becomes successful. It's just, you just keep working at it and it'll happen. But
thank you, Wendell. Appreciate you having me. This is a blast. Sorry, I'm a little bit verbose sometimes. Hopefully we'll cut this down. We'll cut it down into the snippets that are important. But thanks for having me, and I do hope to be on again. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.